All right. We are live. It was just saying my mic was muted, but I think we are good. So I am just going to check and make sure that you guys can hear me okay. I was actually in the wrong spot, about to stream into the wrong event. So I'm glad that I figured that out before I went live. Okay, it looks like we are good. We are live. If you are watching live, just comment. Let me know that you can hear me okay. It sounds all right. It sounds like we're good to go. So, welcome to day 10. We have been diving into these 20 questions to reinvent your life. Now, if you don't have the workbook, it's totally free. You can grab it. Here's the link for the workbook. It's also in the chat, depending on where you're watching from. But if you are watching live, I would love to know, where are you coming in from? Where are you listening? And is this the first time you're joining us, or have you been going through the 20 questions? If you're watching the replay, comment. Let me know where you're from, and have you kind of been following along, or did you just randomly find me? So you can also grab the workbook here. I'll keep that up. So we have been diving in, and I'll open up that chat. We have been diving in on 20 questions to reinvent your life. This is the perfect time of year to do this. It is a reflection time. And I see this again. I've worked with thousands of women. And one of the things that I find the most interesting is people will come to me and they will say, I have this goal, I have this dream. I want to change something about my circumstance, my life. Now, it could be financial, it could be personal. And then I get very invested. Like, I'm invested in your goal, I'm invested in your dream. I believe that you have a dream in your heart for a reason, that God put that there in a reason so that you could achieve it. And then I see people give up on their dreams. One of the things somebody said to me one time, they said, what's the hardest part about your job? And I said openly, it's watching people give up on their dreams. It's when you want something for somebody more than they want for themselves. And so, one of the things that we talked about in one of the first questions is really falling in love with the future version of yourself. That when I love future Tara as much as I love my daughter, or as much as you love your spouse, then you want what's best for that person. And so then your choices today become easier choices, because you're like, I want what's best for that person. So I'll give you an example. Many of you guys know I have a sugar addiction. I have no addictions in my life, but sugar is it. You put a bag of Oreos in front of me, I am done for. Um, it is my drug of choice is sugar, like chocolate, Oreos, whatever. And I have inflammation issues. I have issues with my hands, inflammation levels. I'm trying to get rid of my inflammation through diet and not through drugs and medicine, although sugar is a drug, right? And I want to eat the chocolate. I want to eat the candy. And so what happens is I have to think, do I want future Tara to have pain in her hands? Nope. Do I want future Tara to have pain in her feet? Do I want future Tara to, get up and out of bed and be like, "Ugh, everything hurts"? No. So it makes it easier to say no to that piece of candy or that chocolate. And guys, like, full transparency, I still eat candy and I eat chocolate. It's the amount that I'm working on cutting back on. It is easier to say no, or to say I'm going to delay that or whatever, because I think about future Tara. Because if I just think about Tara right now and what I want right now, guess what? Right now, I want the chocolate. Right now, I want the candy. Right now, I want the Oreo. And isn't that true for so many of us, right? So let's dive into what our question is. Yesterday, our question notes: what are my short term and long term goals for personal and professional growth? So we're really getting into our goals and ambitions now in this section of the workbook. We talked about long-term goals that, for the purpose of this workbook, we're really just focusing within the next year. What are your long-term goals for the next year? We're not going out 5 or 10 years from now, but we're breaking it into the next year, and then breaking that down into, what are your short-term goals from maybe 6 months and less. Okay. So the question today is then, how can I break down these goals, the ones that you said you wanted yesterday, into actionable steps for gradual progress? This is the key to everything. The key word on here. You guys catch what the key word was? Actionable. See, this is where so many of us get stuck. We have a goal, but really it's nothing more than a wish or a dream, because we don't have any action steps to actually progress towards it. And I really love how this, the phrase of gradual progress, because sometimes, how many of you guys are like me? We want overnight success. We want instant success. I mean, here's a perfect example. I just launched my podcast yesterday. It's called Tara's Voice, Interesting People, Irrelevant Conversations. I'm like looking at my stats, like I want progress yesterday. And I had a friend of me say to me today, she's like, Tara, it's going to take time. It's going to take time for people to find you, to listen to you. Like it takes time to get momentum. Now, I know that. I know that. And having had 3 businesses, they take time to build, right? It doesn't change the fact that I still want the instant gratification. And so when we look at our goals, we tend to want the instant gratification, or we think it's just going to show up. Like if I just focus on the goal, if I just think about the goal, it'll happen. But we need actionable steps. We need actionable steps behind this. So, whatever your goal was, okay, you have your goal for the year. And we talked about, since it's the beginning of the year, so wherever you're listening to this, you would look at about, if you're looking at where do I want to be at the end of next year, right? Or this time next year. I want you to break that down into 6 months, because that is really your benchmark. I talk about this term clean on target. I am clean on target for that goal to happen. If I continue to do what I'm doing over the next 6 months, I'm going to hit that goal. Okay. And so we want that clean on target. Once you kind of have there, then you're only working with like a really 6-month time frame. Now, depending on the goal, you can break this down again into, take that 6 months and divide it in half again, so that you're really working in a quarterly basis. And I like to work within that 12-week time frame, those quarterly time frames. And the reason why is it allows me to readjust. There's 2 reasons I think this is powerful. One is that most people will make a goal, they'll start making action towards the goal. And if they don't get results within the first week or 2, they pivot and they shift. There may be times that that's important, but more often than not, what I have seen is that people don't stay in long enough to see the results. One of the things that I teach a lot and I teach my team is that you need 90 days to see a result. You need 90 days, particularly in business. In business, it's like planting seeds. And you have to, you go out, picture a garden, and there's a big pile of dirt, and you have to go out and plant the seeds. You got to get in the dirt, get dirty, water the seeds, fertilize the seeds. You go out every day, you're taking care, tolling the seeds. Is that what it's called? Tolling the seeds. And if somebody's walking by, they'd literally just be like, girl, you're in a pile of dirt. Why are you hanging out in the dirt? Right. But you're like, no, I'm working the dirt. I'm planting a garden. And you might do this for weeks, weeks. You might have to go buy money and spend more on fertilizer. There might be a hailstorm. You got to get out there and you have to cover it up, right? There might be too much sun and you have to put out shades, or there might be rabbits that want to come and eat your, garden, and you got to put up fencing or wiring, whatever. Like, you have to take care of your garden, even though it looks like a pile of dirt. But then one day you see a little sprout and you're like, I think there's something there. I think something took root. And the next day you see a couple more sprouts. And the next day, a couple more sprouts. And then one day you go out there and it's this beautiful garden, and people go, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful garden. And they think this beautiful garden happened overnight, when no, I've been out here for weeks taking care of the dirt. And that is how I've always thought about my business. I have to be out there for weeks taking care of the dirt before I get the garden, right? There is no instant result. I mean, even athletes, right? And I just was answering an article for a media, and they were asking about leadership. And you guys know I am a LinkedIn has like their leadership badges. So I've been recognized as a leadership badge. You get it for like 60 days or whatever. And it was, what are some of the things in leadership that people don't necessarily see that you're doing? And I'm like, everything. When people see a leader, they only see the byproduct. When they see an Olympian, they just see the gold medal. They don't see all of those 5:30 practices in the morning, right? When you look at a leader, you just see, oh, that person has leadership. You don't see the countless hours, days, weeks, months, time, money invested in developing their leadership. Right. I've had people say to me, oh, I couldn't do what you do. I said, well, I couldn't do what I did either 27 years ago when I started. But I've invested the time, the money, years and years in developing my skill set. Right. And so when you're looking at your goals, what I want you to be thinking of is this kind of seed planting, this 90 days. I need to try something to work towards that goal to see if it's going to give me the results that I want. All right. Now, this is also about getting some momentum going. And we talked about this. Momentum is powerful. And a lot of times, if we stop before we get that momentum, it almost becomes more work. It's stop, start, stop, start, start, stop, versus just staying with something. Now, that is very different. And I do want to clarify this. It's very different than choosing a path, going down the wrong path, and continuing to bang your head against the wall, thinking you're going to get a different result. Right? Isn't that the definition of insanity? Right? And you're like, this is what's going to work. And all of the feedback is like, no, that's not going to work. So I do think that successful people, one of the things that they learn to do is they learn to pivot quickly when they realize something is not working. But you need to give it enough time to be able to figure out, is it not working, or have you just not invested enough time in it? Those are two different things. Are you in the planting seeds where you just haven't planted enough seeds for them to take root and to see the fruition of your efforts? Or is this just you're doing something that's not ineffective, right? And that's one of the reasons I like that 12-week mark, because that really is a good time frame for that 12-week mark. And so it gives you 4 times a year that you can pivot if you need to. You can pivot to get in the right direction to pursue your goal. So one of the things now, if you're in the Hey Girl You Can community, hopefully you've gone over into our private Facebook group and you have, shared with us what your personal 1-year goal is, what it is that your long and short-term goals are. And then we can help you and support each other with breaking those down into actionable steps. Otherwise, feel free to put it here in the comments. We actually have a Hey Girl You Can co-working session tomorrow. So if you're in the community during our co-working session, we can also work on that and help you break that down into your actionable steps. But for, if you're not in the community, well, you should join our community. It's heygirlyoucan.com. We have a fantastic community. It's super cheap every month. So why aren't you in our community? Yet if you're not, put it in the comments. I'm happy to kind of, I will comment back on any comments that you leave. But what we want to look for is when we look at this goal and you're looking at, okay, here's where I am, here's where I want to be, and here's where I want to be within 6 months. And here's where I'd like to be within 12 weeks, within that first quarter. I want you to come up with a list of actions. So the first thing we're going to do is I want you to brain dump. So in your journal, you're just going to write down, these are all the action steps that I could take. Now, some of them may be really great and they might, work towards that goal, and some of them may not. Right now, we're just brainstorming. We're just kind of brain dumping. What are the actions that I could take towards this? Okay. So let's say your goal is I want to write a book this year. Well, one of the actions is I got to start writing. Right? And so maybe one of the first goals is to find time in your calendar, whether that's a few minutes every day or a half hour, hour every week, where you're going to time block the actual time to sit down and start writing. Okay. I've heard many, many writers say you just have to start writing when you don't feel like it. When you feel like you have writer's block, you just write and eventually you'll get some good stuff. And it's that consistency, right? Let's say your goal is to build a business. Well, okay, what is the first step that you need to do? What is the first thing that you need to do to build a business? When I started to build Making Cancer Fun, I had been in business for a long time, but I had never had a business like that because my first business was in direct sales, which is a very different type of company and business. So I actually went to my local small business development center and I enrolled in a bunch of classes to learn how to do a profit and loss sheet and to learn how to structure a business and the difference between an S Corp and an LLC and all of that. And I started to take classes. That was the first step. Okay, I want to have a business. I need to figure out how to do a business. I don't know, right? So what is the first step that you need to do? And so when you start to come up with what do you think are these actionable steps that are going to lead you closer to your goal, that are going to put you, we keep doing this visual of a path. There's a path. You walk down the path will take you where you want to go. Many of us in life get on the wrong path. What we want to do is focus on getting on the right path, that you are going in the direction that you want to go. What are the action steps along this path? All right. Now, I want you to look at your list. So once you write down, here's kind of my dump list. These are my action steps. I want you to really step back. Don't be emotionally connected to it. And I want you to look at this with the eyes of if you were the best version of yourself right now, if you were the version of yourself that you're like, I know that person is in me. It doesn't always show up, but this is the best version of myself. Your top leadership, your top business savvy, your top mental game. All right. And if that's a struggle, then I want you to think of the most successful person that you know and pretend you were that person. All right. So I used to think to myself, I used to do this myself. I would think of a mentor that I had, somebody who I thought was very successful, somebody who I admired their values, I admired their business sense. And I would think, would this person do this? If I was this person, would she do that? Right. So you can do it for yourself. You can say, if I was the best version of myself, what would I do? Sometimes, if you're not that far along on your journey, then I want you to pick somebody else that you do admire and you're just going to pretend and say, okay, if I was that person, what would I do? And I want you to look at this list and really say, is this action going to move the needle? Is this action going to move the needle? Or is this just an action? Going on the path, I want to get down there. Is this going to move me down that path? Because a lot of times, what we can do is when we're looking at our goals and we're starting to try to create actionable steps, we just create things that we think will be good, or it sounds like we should do that, but it doesn't actually move the needle. And if we want to start to see results, if we want to start to see transformation in our life, we have to actually move the needle. And so, again, not judging yourself, but this is like that hard water in your face, let's look at reality. Let's wake up call here. The things that I'm writing down, these actionable steps, what's the impact they're going to make? Now, when you're doing goal setting, no one can overhaul their life overnight. And I say this even within our Total Transformation Day. So we have one coming up. Our Total Transformation Day it's a day you work with me one day in a very small group setting, and we dive really, really deep into transforming your life in one day. And the whole idea is like you go in like a caterpillar into your cocoon and you come out as a butterfly. It is a one day deep intensive. We dive into like there's 6 different modules. We dive into who you are, why you're wired your way, your DNA, your goals, your values, your skill set, and we come up with a plan. And so you could say, well, that's a total transformation in one day. Yes and no, because we're not going home and saying overhaul your life. What happens is when you're done working with me during that day, you have an actionable plan for your next step. Your next step towards your transformation. Like we've mapped out the transformation, and now you need to take that first step because nobody can take 10 steps at once. And usually, what happens for most people, I know a few people, but I would say the majority of people, when they try to overhaul everything in their life, they have a very short lifespan for that. They get overwhelmed and they shut down because much of what we do is patterns and habits. And when we try to overhaul everything, it's too easy to flip back into those patterns and habits. Now, sometimes I do know a few select people that have literally been able to overhaul their entire life. Like they just do it's like a 1 week of like, okay, I need drastic change and this day forward, I'm going to overhaul. But I think that's rare. I think this is why when you look at resolutions and New Year's resolutions, most people, I think it's called, did you guys hear of this? I have to look it up. It's called, Quitter's Day. How many of you guys have heard of Quitter's Day? And I want to say it's like I'll look at it, Quitter's Day. It is the January 10th. So it's the second Friday in every January. Okay. And the reason it's called Quitter's Day is because research shows that many people abandon their New Year's resolutions by then. 10 days. They made a resolution on the 1st, and by the 10th, it was gone. Is that crazy? Actual Quitter's Day. And so I just think that's wild. Like 10 days, that's the only thing that we can focus on. So this is where I don't want to think, overhaul, I got to do all these different changes. I was coaching somebody this week, and she sent me her list of like all the things she wanted to change. And I was like, whoa, okay, let's choose one. Let's choose one. Okay. Like it was, and this wasn't her list, but it's the person who's like, I'm going to drink, 10 glasses of water a day. I'm going to start running a mile a day. I'm going to get up every day at 8 a.m. I'm going to only eat clean food. I'm going to meditate a half hour every day. I'm going to do 2 hours of this. I'm going to, organize my pantry closet. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so much. And I really think that sets us up for failure. And then what happens is we reinforce those limiting beliefs of, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I'm always going to stay the same, or I'm stuck, or other people can have this and I can't. So choose one. Remember, we talked about we are wired to win. Like we love to win. We need to find a place to win. So when you're looking at these actionable goals, choose one that you can win. That you're like, yeah, if I did this, it's going to move the needle. I'm going to start to see a result. I'm going to start to see myself stepping into my dream life. I'm going to start to see my life transformed. This is the one, whatever that one is. And put that in the comments. Let me know, like, what is that one that's going to give you the most transformational change? When you look at your list, the goal, yes, is to hit all of these things. But right now, we need to hit one. You need to win somewhere. And when you start to win, you start to rewire your brain. There's my dog, to become a winner. All right. And when you're a winner, you have a different mindset about how you see yourself and how you see what you're capable of. All right. Sorry for the dog backing in the background. That is what happens with a live stream. So we're going to continue the series tomorrow with our day number 11 question. Yeah, tomorrow's 11. And tomorrow we're going to dive a little bit deeper into these limiting beliefs and how they can hold you back, because a big part of what we need to do is our mindset. But before we can even tackle our mindset, we need to know, what are the goals? What are the things that we want? And what are the actions that I need to take to make that happen? And again, if you need more support in this and you're in the Hey Girl You Can community, head over to the private Facebook group. We can work on this tomorrow during our co-working session. If you have questions, submit them into for our Q&A session. And if you're like, I just need a little bit more hand-holding, I want a different year this year. Like, this is where my heart is. I want to see women's lives transformed. I want to see women living the life that they know that they're capable of. And that's what the Total Transformation Day is. And if you're like, I'm not sure if I should be part of that, is this going to be a really good move for me or not? I don't know, but we can hop on a call and we can talk, and we can, kind of figure out where you're at, what you're looking for. And does this make sense for you right now to be part of this day? Because it is coming up pretty soon. If you haven't grabbed the workbook, I've had the QR code here the whole time, but you can grab this for free. What I really like is it gives you a place, when you grab the workbook, it gives you a place to be able to journal. Okay. So you can kind of keep track all of this. There's a lot of research that shows simply by writing this down, that pen, paper, it's more likely to happen. It's more likely to stick for you to have changes. So go ahead, fill out the workbook. Write your stuff down, comment, let me know what's working for you. If you've started to work through some of the other questions, I'd love to know which ones are really resonating with you, which ones are starting to shift for you. And then I will see you tomorrow. We will be back for question 11. We're going to dive in and tackle some of those limiting beliefs, because this is going to be your